Let's go. Good afternoon, everyone. We have the last talk of our virtual seminar on complex analysis and operator theory. And our speaker of today is Alejandro Mas, and from the Universidad Autónoma de Madrid. And he's going to talk about weighted conformal invariance of Banach spaces of analytic functions. Alejandro, cuando quieras.
Thanks, Jose Angel. First of all, I want to thank the organizers to let me the opportunity to do this talk. This presentation is based on a joint work with Professor Alexandru Aleman of Lund University. We begin with some notation and background that we will use around this talk. For example, we will denote the unit disk by D, and we will denote in this way the space of all holomorphic functions in the unit disk and the group of automorphisms of the unit disk. Now, I will present some classical spaces of analytic functions that we will use later. For example, we will start with the Hardy spaces. If we consider an analytic function f in the unit disk, then its integral means are given by this formula. The first formula when p is finite, and the second when p is equal to infinite. So we will say that an analytic function f is in the Hardy space Hp if this supremum of this integral mean is finite. Moreover, we can see that this integral mean is increasing with respect to r, so we can replace this supremum by a limit. Some important properties of these spaces are the following. If we start with a function in the Hardy space Hp, then its radial limits exist almost everywhere. Moreover, when p is finite, the polynomials are dense in our space Hp. And we have the following pointwise estimates. On the other hand, when p is equal to 2, the Hardy space H2 becomes a Hilbert space with this scalar product. Other important examples of spaces of analytic function in the unit disk are the weighted Berman spaces. The weighted Berman space, AP beta, consists of all analytic functions in the unit disk, such that this integral with respect to the area measure is finite. Some properties of these spaces: the polynomials are dense in the space AP beta, and we have the following pointwise estimates. As in the Hardy spaces, when p is equal to 2, the space A2 beta becomes a Hilbert space with this scalar product. The last spaces that I want to present in this part will be the weighted best of spaces. An analytic function f is in the weighted best of space BP beta if its derivative belongs to the weighted Berman space AP beta. We can equip this space with this following norm, or also with this other equivalent norm. These spaces, these weighted best of spaces, are also called weighted Dirichlet spaces, but we only use this terminology or this name to the Hilbert case. I mean, as in the previous spaces, when p is equal to 2, the space B2 beta becomes a Hilbert space with this scalar product. So in this case, we will call B2 beta a weighted Dirichlet space, and we will denote it by D2 beta. In this talk, we focus on a certain weighted conformal invariance property. First of all, I will recall the classical concept of the conformal invariance. Given a Banach space of analytic function in the unit disk, endowed with this seminorm ρ, we will say that our space is conformal invariant if for any function f in our space, then f composed with any automorphism phi remains in our space X, and moreover, there exists a positive constant C, such that we can control the seminorm of this composition with the seminorm of our function f, uniformly for any automorphism phi. Some examples of classical spaces of analytic functions that satisfy this property, we find the block space. An analytic function f is in the block space if the supremum is finite. The block space is conformal invariant, and moreover, this space plays an important and crucial role in the study of this classical conformal invariance property. I will talk about it later. More examples, we have that the classical Dirichlet space is conformal invariant, and also the space BMOA is conformal invariant. An analytic function f is in the space BMOA if the supremum is finite. So, in this presentation, we will study the invariance under this weighted composition operator W alpha phi. If we see in the classical conformal invariance, it studies the invariance under the composition operator whose symbol is an automorphism. So here, instead of consider these composition operators, we consider all these weighted composition operators, where phi is also an automorphism. To be precise, we will say that a Banach space of analytic function is conformally invariant of index alpha if our space satisfies the following properties. The first property, our space is continuously contained in the space of analytic function in the unit disk. By the uniform boundedness principle, this is equivalent to say that the point evaluations are bounded. The second property is the following. If we consider a function which is analytic in a disk of radius greater than 1, then this function is in our space. And the last property, there exist two constants, alpha and k, such that we can control the norm of this weighted composition operator, W alpha phi, is uniformly bounded for any automorphism phi. For example, with these three properties, we can deduce that this constant alpha is unique in the following sense. If we consider a conformal invariant space of index alpha, then this space cannot be conformally invariant of other index beta. Some examples of classical spaces of analytic function in the unit disk that satisfy all this property, we find the Hardy spaces. When P is finite, the Hardy space HP is conformally invariant of index 1 over P. More examples, the weighted Berman spaces. The weighted Berman space AP beta is conformally invariant of index 2 plus beta over P. And the Korenblum spaces. These spaces are also called Grove classes, and the Korenblum space A minus gamma consists of all analytic functions such that this supremum is finite. In this case, the Korenblum space A minus gamma is conformally invariant of index gamma. Moreover, we can see that in all these examples, in all of these three types of examples, the weighted composition operator W alpha phi defined in the property 3 is actually an isometry. On the other hand, if we define the following space, a log, that consists of all analytic functions in the unit disk such that the supremum is finite, we can see that this space satisfies the property 1 and the property 2, but fails to satisfy the property 3 for any alpha greater than 0. The same happens with the classical Dirichlet space. However, if we assume some hypothesis about the parameters, we can see that the weighted best of space, BP beta, is conformally invariant of index beta plus 2 over P minus 1. This is not easy to see, but at the end of the talk, I will present a result that generalizes this fact. Now, we begin with the study of this weighted conformal invariance property. First, we will see a relation between our invariance with some standard objects. To this part, we will consider two Banach spaces, X and Y, such that this space satisfies the property 1, or the point evaluations are bounded. With this hypothesis, we can define the space of pointwise multipliers from x to y as the space of all analytic functions in the unit disk U, such that U times any function of x belongs to the space Y. We can equip this space with this norm. On the other hand, we can define the weak product of x and y as the space of all analytic functions in the unit disk with this representation such that this infinite sum is finite. So what is the relation between these spaces and our weighted conformal invariance property? If we start with a Banach space of conformal invariant Banach space of index alpha x and a conformal invariant space of index beta y, then we can see that if alpha is greater than beta, then this space of pointwise multipliers from x to y is trivial. On the other hand, if alpha is less than beta, then this space of multipliers satisfies the property 3 with index beta minus alpha. What is the problem here? We don't know if this space of multipliers satisfies the property 2. For example, if x is not included in y, the constant function 1 does not belong to this space of multipliers. So if we add this extra condition with extra hypothesis that this space of multipliers satisfies the property 2, then this space will be conformal invariant of index beta minus alpha. Finally, the weak product of x and y is conformal invariant of index alpha plus beta. Now, we pass to study the relation between our invariance with the one-parameter abelian operator groups. We know that the group of automorphism of the unit disk contains several one-parameter subgroups. For example, these two ones. These subgroups induce these other operator groups. So the question here is the following. If we start with a good space, by good I mean a conformal invariant space of index this alpha, then can we expect some good properties of these operator groups? For example, are these operator groups strongly continuous? The answer is no. In general, no. We have to add some extra hypothesis. This hypothesis is the density of the polynomials. If we start with a conformal invariant space such that the polynomials are dense in our space, then we can prove that the uniform convergence on compact subsets of the unit disk of this sequence of automorphisms implies the strong convergence of these induced weighted composition operators W alpha phi n. The polynomial approximation is a basic topic regarding Banach spaces of analytic functions in the unit disk, and usually is closely related with the semigroup of dilations. We also see the relation between this concept and this rotation group. In this part, we will relax our property 3. Instead of consider all these weighted composition operator W alpha phi, we will only consider these rotation operators. With this hypothesis, we can prove the following. If we start with a Banach space of analytic function in the unit disk, satisfying the property 1, the property 2, and this weak property 3', then the polynomials are dense in our space if and only if the group of rotation is strongly continuous in this interval, and this happens if and only if the semigroup of dilations is strongly continuous at 1. Using the same techniques that we use to prove the result, we can get some sufficient condition. We get the following. If we start with a space X satisfying the property 1, 2, and this weak property 3', and moreover, the linear span of point evaluation is dense in the dual space X', then the polynomials are dense in our space. A good question here is the following. Is the converse of the result true? The answer is no. And we can find a counterexample with the classical Berman space A1. We know that we can identify the dual of the Berman space A1 with the block space. And with this, we can get a contradiction. A direct consequence of this previous result is the following corollary. If we assume that our space satisfies the property 1, 2, and this weak property 3', and moreover, our space is reflexive, then polynomials are dense in our space. Since we have talked about the dual space, what can we say about duality? For this part, we consider a conformal invariant space of index alpha, and we also assume that the polynomials are dense in our space. We take this assumption to identify the dual space X' with a space of holomorphic function in the unit disk. So the question here is the following. Can we find a representation of this dual space X' that preserves our weighted conformal invariance property? The answer is yes. In order to get the representation, we need to use these Hilbert spaces of analytic function in the unit disk H alpha, whose reproducing kernel is given by this formula. The reproducing kernel induces this scalar product. Which are these spaces? When alpha is equal to 1/2, the space H alpha is the classical Hardy space H2. When alpha is greater than 1/2, we recover this weighted Berman space. And finally, when alpha is less than 1/2, we get this weighted Dirichlet space. So with these spaces in mind, we can define the following map U. U maps the dual space X' into the space of analytic function in the unit disk in the following way. We can see here the reproducing kernel of the space H alpha. Moreover, we will denote by X' alpha the range of this map. With this hypothesis, I recall our space is conformal invariant of index alpha, and we assume the density of the polynomials, then we can prove the following. If we define the norm in the space X' alpha in this way, then the space X' alpha becomes a Banach space of analytic function which is conformal invariant of index alpha. And moreover, we can represent any element of the dual in this following form. Now we pass to other different thing. In 1979, Rubel and Timony proved that the largest conformal invariant space in the classical sense of conformal invariance is the block space. And 6 years later, Aracci, Fisher, and Petre proved that the smallest one is the best of space B1. The best of space B1 consists of all analytic functions in the unit disk whose second derivative belongs to the Berman space A1. And moreover, we can see the best of space B1 as the space of all infinite sums of disk automorphism with L1 coefficients. So the question here is, which is the smallest and largest conformal invariant space of index alpha? We will start with the smallest one. A good candidate for this space is this space X min alpha. This space X min alpha consists of all analytic functions in the unit disk with this representation with L1 coefficients. We can check that this space X min alpha satisfies the property 1 and the property 3. And moreover, this space X min alpha is continuously contained in any conformal invariant space of index alpha. What is the problem? Does this space satisfy the property 2? We can see more of this, because thanks to atomic decomposition theorems due to Koithman and Rochberg for the weighted Berman space and due to Peloso for the weighted base of space, we can see that this space X min alpha is actually this weighted best of space when alpha is less than or equal to 1, or this weighted Berman space when alpha is greater than 1. So, in particular, this space X min alpha is conformal invariant of index alpha. On the other hand, if we consider an arbitrary conformal invariant space of index alpha, then we can see that our space is continuously contained in the Coren-Bloom space A minus alpha. We can see this claim with these computations where we only use that our space X satisfies the property 1 and the property 3. So, the largest conformal invariant space of index alpha is the Coren-Bloom space A minus alpha, and the smallest conformal invariant space of index alpha is either a weighted Berman space or a weighted best of space. Following these ideas, in 1965, Arazi and Fisher proved that the unique conformal invariant Hilbert space, in the classical sense of conformal invariance, is the Dirichlet space, of course, up to equivalence of norms. So, is there a version of the result in our context? The answer is yes. We can prove that the unique conformal invariant Hilbert space of index alpha is this space H alpha. We recall that this space H alpha is either the classical Hardy space H2 or a weighted Berman space or a weighted Dirichlet space. Of course, all of this up to equivalence of norms. Some ideas of the proof of this theorem: if we start with a conformal invariant Hilbert space of index alpha, then our space is reflexive. So the polynomials are dense in our space. We can even see that this group of rotation is strongly continuous. On the other hand, we can define this equivalent norm in our space that induces this scalar product. Why do we consider this scalar product? Because the monomials are orthogonal in this scalar product. So we can represent this equivalent norm in this following way, in terms of the Taylor coefficients. So now we want to compare this norm with the norm of the space H alpha, which is given by this formula. If we can prove that these two norms are equivalent, the work is done. But for this, it is enough if we can prove that these two inequalities holds for any n greater than or equal to 0. But we can even reduce this using the duality theorem, because if we can prove that these two inequalities holds for any conformal invariant space of index alpha, in particular, this inequality holds for the space X prime alpha. And with this information, we can get that the first inequality also holds. So we have only to prove that the second inequality holds. To prove this inequality, we will use an argument based on asymptotic estimates of this norm. In the following part, we focus on constructing these conformal invariant spaces of index alpha. In order to get this construction, we will use two different methods. The first method is the following. Okay, we start with a Banach space of analytic function satisfying the property 1. Recall, the point evaluations are bounded, and the property 2. If we consider any function which is analytic on a disk of radius greater than 1, this function is in our space. If we start with one of these spaces, then we can define this subspace M alpha of X. M alpha of X consists of all functions in our space such that the supremum is finite. We can check that this subspace M alpha of X satisfies the property 1 and the property 3. But what is the problem? Does this subspace satisfy the property 2? We can see the following. If we start with this space X satisfying the property 1 and the property 2, then our subspace M alpha of X satisfies the property 2 or is conformally invariant of index alpha if and only if the supremum is finite. This condition is equivalent to saying that the space X min alpha is included in the subspace M alpha of X. Moreover, if the largest conformally invariant space of index alpha, the Kornblum space A minus alpha, is contained in our space, then the subspace M alpha of X is actually this Kornblum space. So now, what are these subspaces M alpha of X? If we start with a good space with a conformally invariant space of index gamma, we can prove that the subspace M alpha of X is trivial when alpha is greater than gamma. The subspace M gamma of X is X, and the subspace is this space of multipliers when alpha is less than gamma. The problem here is when our space X is not conformally invariant of any index. In this case, we can get some very strange subspaces M alpha of X. The second method to construct conformally invariant spaces of index alpha is using interpolation. In this part, we use the complex interpolation method, which is based on the Hadamard-Free line theorem. We apply this complex interpolation method to the couple formed by the largest conformally invariant space of index alpha, the Kornblum space A minus alpha, and the smallest one. So the question here is, which is this interpolation space? To answer this question, we need two main ingredients. The first ingredient is the classical theorems about the complex interpolation of LP spaces. Here we have the papers by Stein and Weiss, and the book of Berg and Lofton. And the second ingredient is a technical lemma. For this lemma, we will need the following notation. If we consider a positive measurable function V in the unit disk D, then the space LP of V is the space LP with respect to the area measured with weights V. And the space L infinity of V consists of all function f such that f times V is essentially bounded in the unit disk. With this notation, we can present the following lemma. If we assume certain conditions about the parameters and we define these linear operators P beta and Q beta in this way, then we can prove that the linear operator P beta is a bounded projection from this L infinity space onto this Kornblum space. And also, this linear operator P beta is a bounded projection from this LP space onto this weighted Berman space. On the other hand, we can see that the linear operator Q beta extends to a continuous projection from this Kornblum space onto this other Kornblum space, and from this weighted Berman space onto either this weighted Berman space or onto this weighted Besov space. Depends on gamma is greater than P minus 1 or gamma is less than or equal to P minus 1. With these two ingredients in mind, we can prove that our interpolation space is either this weighted Berman space when alpha is greater than theta, or this weighted Besov space when alpha is less than or equal to theta. Some ideas of the proof. By the classical theorems about the complex interpolation of LP spaces, we can deduce that this interpolation space is this LP space. Now, using the bounded projection P beta and the properties of interpolation spaces, we can translate this result to the analytic world. And we get that this interpolation space is this weighted Berman space. Finally, using the linear operator Q beta, we obtain the desired result. So now, in this last part of the talk, I will present some relations between our weighted conformal invariance property with the space of derivatives, the space of antiderivatives, and the integration operators. We begin with the following. If we start with a Banach space of analytic function, we can define the space of derivative of x as the space of all derivatives of all functions in our space. On the other hand, the space of antiderivative consists of all analytic functions in the unit disk whose derivative is in our space. We can equip this space with these norms. So if we start with a conformal invariant space of index alpha x, then we can see that the space of derivatives and the space of antiderivative satisfy the property 1 and the property 2. And moreover, we can see that these two chains of includes holds. Some examples of these spaces, if we start with the Korre-Bloom space A minus gamma, then the space of derivative will be this other Korre-Bloom space A minus gamma minus 1. And the space of antiderivative will be this other Korre-Bloom space. This case, of course, only if gamma is greater than 1. On the other hand, if we start with a weighted Derman space, then the space of derivative of this space is this other weighted Derman space. And the space of antiderivative is either this weighted Derman space when beta is greater than p minus 1, or this weighted best of space when beta is less than or equal to p minus 1. So, with these examples in mind, it seems that if we start with a conformal invariant space of index alpha, then the space of derivatives will be conformal invariant of index alpha plus 1, and the space of antiderivatives will be conformal invariant of index alpha minus 1. But is this true? The answer is no. In general, no. We have to add some extra conditions. One of these conditions is related with this modified César operator defined by this formula. We can prove the following. If we start with a conformal invariant space of index alpha, such that the polynomials are dense in our space, then the space of derivatives is conformal invariant of index alpha plus 1 if and only if this modified César operator is bounded. And moreover, if we assume the boundedness of this modified César operator, then the space of antiderivatives is conformal invariant of index alpha minus 1 if this identity operator minus this modified César operator is invertible. Where does this modified César operator appear? In the case of the space of derivative. If we start with a conformal invariant space of index alpha, then we can see that this modified César operator is closely related with this family of operators. We can see, for example, that this modified César operator is bounded if and only if this family of operators is uniformly bounded for A in the unit disk. On the other hand, if we consider this weighted composition operator W alpha phi, and we apply this operator to an arbitrary function f, and we take derivative, we will get the following equality. Now, we can rewrite this equality to get this other one. And here, in the right part, we can see where appears this operator, this family of operator, CA. Now, to finish this talk, I will present some relations between the integration operators and our weighted conformal invariance property. These operators are defined by this formula, and for example, the modified César operator is an operator of this type. Moreover, this operator have been studied by many authors. For example, Pomerenke was one of first that studied this kind of operators, And he proved in 1977 that the integration operator Tg is bounded in the Hardy space H2 if and only if its symbols G is in the space BMOA. Later, Aleman and Siskakis in 1995 extends the result to the other Hardy spaces. And 2 years later, also, Aleman and Siskakis proved that for a large class of weights, this integration operator Tg is bounded on this weighted Berman space if and only if G is in the block space. So we can see there exists a relation between the boundedness of these integration operators with some space of pointwise multipliers. To be precise, if we consider x and y two Banach spaces satisfying the property 1, recall the point evaluations are bounded, and this property 2, for any function which is analytic in a disk of radius greater than 1, this function is in our space, then our integration operator Tg from x to y is bounded if and only if G prime belongs to this space of pointwise multipliers from x to the space of derivative of y. And moreover, we have that these two norms are equal. So now, if we apply the theory of our weighted conformal invariance property, we can get the following. If we assume that our space X is conformally invariant of index alpha, and also the space of derivatives of Y is conformally invariant of index beta, then this space of multipliers satisfies the property 3 with index beta minus alpha. With this hypothesis, if our integration operator is bounded, then we can control the norm of this family of operators, T, G, phi, with the norm of our operator, Tg. Now, using the remark and the theorem for the space of derivative, we will get a John-Nidenberg type inequality. First of all, I will recall the classical John-Nidenberg theorem. A function f is in the space BMO if f belongs to this L1 space and the supremum is phi. With this, the classical John-Nidenberg theorem shows that if we consider a function f in the space BMO, then there exist two positive constants, k and beta, such that we can control the Lebesgue measure of this set in this way. So this theorem tells that, okay, we can find an unbounded function in the BMO space, but this function cannot grow too fast. So now, in our context, we can prove the following. If we start with a conformally invariant space of index alpha, and we assume that the polynomials are dense in our space, and this modified set operator is bounded, we assume all these conditions to apply the theorem for the space of derivatives, then if our integration operator Tg is bounded, there exists two constants, C and delta, such that for all these lambdas and for all automorphism phi, this last inequality holds. This is a necessary condition for the boundedness of this integration operator Tg, and probably this is not a sufficient condition in this generality. And this is all I want to say. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you for your talk. Now is the right time for comments or questions. Do we have questions or comments? Seems to me that we don't have any question. So, sorry, Dimitri want to make a question. Dimitri, please.
Yeah, I just wonder, probably it follows from your results, if you have your conformal invariant space of order alpha, what is the minimal and maximal pointwise growth of functions in this space? say, how can they grow when you approach the boundary of the disk?
I haven't thought about it, but for example, you have any function, any space conformal invariant of index alpha is contained in this Cohen-Bloom space, A minus alpha. So I think with this you can get some estimates, some growth estimates.
I think it is an interesting question just to see, say, two-sided somehow estimates. What you say, what you told is from one side, but
yes,
you need some opposite result also. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Further questions or comments?
Just I have a little question.
Okay, let's go.
Yes.
Can you hear me or not?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, Alejandro, very nice talk. I have just a simple and elementary question. Can you please set the slide where you put the three conditions you impose from the beginning?
Yes.
Because I would like to understand something. And when you call condition one is clear, you want your space to be a norm space which is continuously contained into the space of holomorphic functions. Okay.
Yes.
Second condition, according to what I understood, it's actually meaning something that anything which is holomorphic in a big disk also is inside there.
Yes. And with this, for example, you can prove that the space of holomorphic function in a disk of radius greater than 1 is continuously contained.
Continuously contained. That's right. So that's, and well, according to this second condition, the way I see that, you are claiming that the polynomials are always in your space, and also not only that, but you take any Möbius transformation phi alpha or phi a or whatever you call it. These are always contained in your space. Okay, so the norm. So suppose you work with the Möbius in the Möbius transform phi a. The norm of phi a is depending on a at the beginning. For each a, this is well defined. Okay, so here is my point. For the third condition is the one you have here. Okay, thank you for this. So this is the systems of one constant alpha, positive constant. You know, this is what you call conformally invariant of order or index alpha. Alpha must be positive according to you, right?
Yes.
So here's my point. Is it possible to say in the second condition, which is there is this interplay between the second and the third condition always in all your theorems, because I mean the first condition is nothing, is something which is natural. So is it possible to say something about the dependence on A, on this, you take all the family automorphisms and you want the norm depending on A. Can you say something about the dependence on how this, because they depend on A, but I'm sure that when A goes to the boundary, this norm should blow up. Otherwise, you probably will get nothing. So is it possible to get a connection between the rate of way this goes to infinity and the alpha that appears there? You understand my point? Do you think there is some
more or less?
There is. My point is, can you really find this constant alpha depending on this condition too? This would be essentially the point. According to the theorem you had mentioned, there are cases where you can show that under several assumptions something happens. So I don't know if I make it clear. So have you seen some relationship between the way that the norm of the automorphism blows to the boundary and the alpha that appears?
Yes. For example, in the theorem of the unique conformal invariant Hilbert space, to prove this theorem, the crucial point is to study the norm of this automorphism, but with automorphism, the derivative of this automorphism to the power alpha. But the basic, the crucial point is to study this, where the behavior of these norms.
Yeah, so this is probably the connection. Yeah, very good. Yes, and one more thing that I didn't follow is, according to the maximal space, I understood clearly that you replace the block space by the Korenbrun space. This is clear,
Yes.
more or less. But
Yes.
in the setting of the minimal, I
Yes.
don't know if I got it correctly, because usually with the classical conformal invariance, you get the base of class B1, so the pre-dual
Yes.
of the. Do you also get here the pre-dual of the Korenbrun or not? Because you tell what did you get about the minimal? What is the minimal case for?
The minimal is the weighted base of a space, or the weighted unit of space, depends on the terminology, or the weighted permanent space. And
but
yes,
is this the pre-dual of the maximal or not? This is.
I think
No,
yes.
but this is only for the
I'm not
Hilbert
sure
space.
now.
No, I don't mean that. I mean in the scale. You now you
Yeah,
want to
yes.
put the scale for
Yes, it's,
I don't mean the Hilbert space case. I mean the general
here.
case. I think it's probably correct, but I am not sure what you
No,
here is. Oh, this is the example which is not
here.
Here you have the minimal.
Here. Here. Yes, the minimal space is this weighted base of space.
Yeah, I have the feeling that this must be probably the pre-dual, right? I'm not
Yes,
now
I think yes, but I'm not
Mhm.
sure that now. But
Yeah,
I think yes.
Yeah, it should be the pre-dual of the other one.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. No, I think it's very nice theory. I see that you have, of course, now a lot of questions appear. Many people could start doing things. Yes, I like it very much. Thank you very much, Alejandro.
Thank
very
you.
nice. Okay, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Oscar, for your comments and questions. Do we have some more questions, some extra comments? Okay, it seems to me that we don't have other questions, so we thanks again to Alejandro for his nice talk. And I know